the menstrual cycle has 2 halves and 4 weeks. Now, depending on the length of your cycle will depend how long a week is, right? So a week might not be 7 days, it could be 4, it could be 12, but we'll get into that. So the 2 halves of the menstrual cycle are from day 1, which is bleeding, and I'm drawing this picture according to the correspondence with the directions in the southern hemisphere. So if I was drawing this in the northern hemisphere, it would look different. So but don't worry about that. So day 1 of the menstrual cycle and day 1 of the first half is bleeding, not spotting, flowing blood. Okay, so this is day 1. So this half, from here to here, going this way, is the first half of the menstrual cycle that goes from day 1 to ovulation. Oh, that was a heart by kind of not accident. So this is the first half of the menstrual cycle, and this is the second half of the menstrual cycle. And the first half of the menstrual cycle is called the follicular phase. And the second half of the menstrual cycle is called the luteal phase. So, depending on the length of your follicular phase, which is day 1 to ovulation, depends how long your 2 weeks are. But let's just use the average numbers that we've been led to believe are the case, and not necessarily always, is that this is week 1, and this is week 2, and so halfway, so the average length of a follicular phase is 14 days, with ovulation occurring on day 14. So that would make week 1 7 days and week 2 7 days. But if you ovulated on day 20, say, then week 1 would be 10 days, week 2 would be 10 days. And the way you can tell if you're ovulating is by your awareness of your body, your libido, your energy level, your emotions, and physically by the fertile mucus that your cervix makes, which is called spinbarkite. And when you get a bit on your fingers, you can usually tell because when you wipe yourself it goes slippery as anything. If you get a little bit of that slipperiness, the mucus between your fingers, it stretches like this. And that's so that it lines up in your vagina and cervix so that the sperm can just go all the way through. And the other ovulation signs are perhaps a little bit of pain on whichever ovary is releasing an egg, and that can be anything from a little twinge to like feeling like you've got a massive egg in your basket or something. And also when you sit down hard on something, you can sometimes get a bit of a zoom pain up through you. Anybody got any other ovulation signs that they've used? Oh, temperature. Your temperature goes up by 0.5 degree after you ovulate, so that's a useless contraceptive. And all of those things I've just told you are useless for contraception as well, because sperm lives from 3 to 5 to 7 days. So if you're looking for your fertile mucus and you've got sperm inside you from 2 days ago and your fertile mucus is there, then it's probably sperm on the way to your egg. So in terms of sperm in you and contraception, you need to be avoiding that for at least 5 days before you ovulate. So if you're going to be using that information, you need to be having mapped your cycle enough times and see the regularity to be able to do that. There also is another time in the cycle when we all have the potential to ovulate. It's called the lunar phase return ovulation, and that happens that you have the potential to ovulate whenever the moon is in the same phase as it was on the day you were born. So the way to find that out is just you access an ephemeris, or you can just Google, because Google can do everything. Put in your birth date, so date, month, year, which hemisphere you were born on, and write moon phase, and then it'll come up with a little map and you can figure out your day. And then that's another time to be aware of for contraception and another opportunity for conception. And there's been a lot of like, is that true, is that not true? But I, for one, and often in a circle, there's many women who have, I don't know how I got pregnant, I was bleeding, or whatever, yeah. So it's worth knowing about, and it's very important to let our sexually active little sisters and daughters know about it, because it's another time they need to be aware if they don't want to get pregnant. And this lunar phase return happens for men too, and apparently they have an increased sperm count and on their lunar phase return, and the effect of it continues on post-menopause as a day when you have extra creative energy. You can do stuff to align your lunar phase return ovulation and your cycle ovulation too. Francesca Naish, thank you. Yeah, she does that. So that's the Jocelyn Centre Natural Fertility Clinic, can help you do that kind of thing with meditations and stuff. Okay, so week 1 is the bleeding, and then the red tent moon lodge experience, the quietening. Many of you here are in that space or just leaving the bleeding time, and that is the thing that gets the most attention in the menstrual cycle. Often with women, you talk about the menstrual cycle, they only know that it's just the bleeding, but that's actually a small part of it. It's 3 to 6 or 7 days long, and then there's the rest of the cycle. So it gets the most attention, but it's not the only part. So then the week 2 is the rising energy to ovulation, which would be like our full moon experience, our most out there. And I just described the experience of emotionally and physically, and also, so a woman in her blood time, her moon time, her menses is the most grounded and connected a woman can be to the mother, to the earth, and her inner knowing a woman can be. A woman at ovulation is the most charismatic, out there, articulate, intelligent, accessing her intelligence, a human being can be. This is like primo. And you don't ovulate when you're on the pill, and the bleeding that you do on the pill is just a breakthrough bleeding from reducing the amount of hormones you're giving your body. So if you need to be on the pill, or someone you know needs to be on the pill, at least align it with the moon, so that the sugar pills or the no pill taking part of the process is when the dark moon is. And then at least they'll be in that flow with the lunar energy. The pill actually turns off 150 body mechanisms, which is so unhealthy, and is often, as we've heard even here, the beginning of the messing up of our hormonal production and cyclical nature. So then week 3 is the first part of the luteal phase, and week 4, the final quarter or whatever of the luteal phase. Now, the luteal phase from ovulation to bleeding is fixed. It is always the same length of time. It could be different among women, like the average is 14 or 15, and it could be 11, it could be 16 or whatever. But the thing is, for you, it is in a healthy cycle, it is the one constant. It's the one part of the cycle that you can rely on and therefore potentially predict when you're going to ovulate, but not necessarily. You can know when you ovulated retrospectively by when you bled, knowing however long your luteal phase is, if that makes sense. But in a healthy model, in a stable life, then this side may stay the same, but this is the side, the follicular side, that changes. So if you travel, or you're ill, or you move into a house with all women, or whatever, the part of your menstrual cycle that gets longer or shorter is this side, the follicular phase. Because once you ovulate, it's a process that goes from ovulation to bleeding based on the role of the corpus luteum, which simply means in Latin white body, which is the place on the ovary where the egg hatched out of, and its process of producing progesterone to maintain a pregnancy, because that's actually what the process is all about. So now, to give it a little bit more meaning and ability to relate to it, I'm going to actually draw the seasons on here, the Earth seasons, because we are all as if the Earth. And the menstrual cycle is an example of that. So nearly went right through. So starting at the bottom, and I'm just going to use the four main archetypal seasons: winter, spring, summer, and autumn. So this is like winter. The winter part of our cycle. And this is like the spring. I'll just get them all on there and then we can talk about it a bit. And this is like the summer. And this is like the autumn. So these days, just to orient ourselves, let's say this is like day 7, and this is like day 21. But again, you know, that depends on the length of your cycle, but just so that you, and this would be day 29 or 8 or whatever, on an average healthy cycle. So from day, 25 to whenever you're going to bleed, and that could be day 25 to day 70 or whatever, and then also like potentially in the perimenopausal phase. In the days before your blood is due, it's like winter. It's the beginning of winter. And what do we do in the winter? We draw in, we sit, we're looking for warmth and nurturing and an inward space to be. And this winterness continues to about day 3 or so of our cycle. So just before bleeding and during bleeding is like our internal winter. And it's an easy way to understand how to care for ourselves if we think of it like that. So what do you need in the winter? What do we need? Warmth. We need to be contained. We need to be quiet. Comforts, yeah. And like think about what the earth is doing. Like it's the leaves I've got some pictures there of the seasons on the cards there. It's the trees, the deciduous trees actually look dead. You know, like it's there's no outward growth. There's actually though there's root growth. So the metaphor of that for us is significant. There's root growth, and the sap rises in the winter, and it's the time when the seeds are gestating in the earth, ready to sprout in the spring. So if we just think, it's not like we're doing nothing. What we're doing is we're preparing for the next stage of growth. So the spring, which is like, say, day 4 to, say, day 11 or something, is when our energy's rising and we're metaphorically sprouting and budding, and we emerge from our winterness and start to notice there's stuff going on. Oh my goodness. Instead of picking up the clothes you dropped on the floor when you got into bed to put on, you might even remember you have something that matches. And then as you approach your summer, you start to be even more aware of your physicality and your effect on others as your energy rises and move into your summer. So the summer sort of aspect of the menstrual cycle is the opposite to the winter. So it's the days before ovulation and the days after ovulation, and you're at your peak. You're at your peak and your peak ability to access your feminine power at this level. I mean, this is obviously, the opposites are similar in that these are both very powerful places, and but with different extremes. So this is the out there summerness, this is the in there winterness aspect. So as I said before, like a woman who's ovulating, can have everybody eating out of her hands, actually. So this is something to design your life around, because if you need to convince people about something, so you're doing a presentation at work or whatever, do it when you're ovulating, and they'll just go, oh yeah. Whatever you say, everybody wants the attention of an ovulating woman.
Sales pitch.
Is this the sales pitch time? Yeah. Not this, because you just say like, oh, actually, it's not that good. Or I don't really want to talk to you about it. See me in 2 weeks. So that's the summer, and then the autumn. So the autumn and the spring, similar but opposite. This is the premenstruum. This is the time when, just like the trees, deciduous trees are letting go of their leaves, so too are we beginning the shedding phase as we go deeper into the descent and back into the winter again. So the thing about this is, just like in autumn, autumn is the harvest, the time of the harvest. And the time of the harvest in the menstrual cycle, what happens then is that the way you have looked after yourself from here to here, so what you sow is what you reap. What's the way you say that properly? You reap what you sow. So you reap at the harvest phase what you sowed back here. So this is the time when you see the harvest of, or the effect of, how you've cared for yourself or not during this part of the cycle. So the common experience is that everything that's not working in your life shows up in week 3 of your menstrual cycle. And that's been pathologized, as the whole cycle has been, as a whole female experience has been, and it's got its own name. It's called Premenstrual Syndrome, and the list of characteristics or experiences of it are like, you know, every possible thing you can think of a woman's experience, and it's been made as abnormal. It's been seen as pathology, when in actual fact, if we look at the deeper meaning of it, it's the autumnness and the harvest readout. So what's not working in your life and what is. Because women who have significant PMS can reduce that and even get rid of it if they care for themselves down here. It might be one cycle all it takes. It might be several, whatever. It'll take however long it takes, like everything does. But what happens here when the seeds are being gestated is the harvest you see here. And then, as we know, the autumn, it begins with the end of summer and goes to the beginning of winter. So there's quite a lot of change here, of letting go, shedding, and in terms of the menstrual cycle, there's an invitation to go deeper in. So as we would as animals on the earth, we would be preparing for winter.